Okay, so this is a sample of what I'm expecting for your final assignment. I do want to walk through it because I did this with my other class and they found it to be beneficial. So, cover page. This is a final project in college. Put a cover on it. Put a bird on it. What?
Is there going to be a copy of this sample to reference?
It's in the folder, so use this as your template if you would like.
Okay.
Okay? But there are things that I left out because I'm lazy. I didn't want to write a second lesson plan, so you'll see.
That, and you're like, I did it intentionally, and I was like...
Intentionally left out because Dr. Sturm is lazy. No, that's not true. Dr. Sturm was busy and didn't have time to create a whole second lesson plan or fourth lesson plan. Okay, so lesson plan 1 is a cut and paste job. Remember before you cut and paste that you need to fix all of the suggestions and revisions that I gave you feedback on. But this is a cut and paste. Notice that I've taken out all of the italicized instructions. Those are just for you as you're working, so remove those. This is your final. This should be clean and neat. Every lesson plan is labeled at the top. Every title of the lesson progressively changes. Make sure you're catching all those little things. The first thing you're going to get graded on is your submission, fine. Second thing you're going to get graded on is lessons 1 through 4. I'm going to check and make sure that those are all updated. There's only 5 points for that, so it's low stakes, but it's there. And that would be a silly thing to lose points on because you already got feedback and a grade. So this is the one, I never wrote this in the class, I just didn't. So that says it's intentionally left blank. Yours should not be, okay? Fill that in and take out the yellow. Lesson plan 3 is a cut and paste. This is the one where I created the assessment. All of my attachments are there. Please be sure to label and put instructions for how, like a substitute would give that assessment. A lot of points were taken off for not having those things on 3 and 4. Make sure they're there. And then your handouts. So I created that little journal. We've already talked about this one. This one's left blank too. Again, lazy/busy. Here's lesson plan 5. So I wrote the whole thing. You're going to see exactly what goes into it and the kind of detail that you should be striving for. Probably not achieving because I was way over detailed in this for a couple reasons that I'll talk about. So it starts with, don't put sample for author, put your name. Sometimes I just feel like I need to point these things out because of the grading, the things that I've seen in the past. Okay, so everything should look pretty much the same until we get down to the assessment box. That's still kind of new from lessons 3 and 4. So remember, I'm teaching brown bear, and I'm asking my students, the standard is to discuss a text, to participate in a discussion. So I'm asking them to do that in this final lesson. This is the culminating lesson in my series of lessons. So up to now, they've been like saying what colors they see, saying what animals they see in the book, going around the school and doing a scavenger hunt to look for things that are that color. So working on this stuff, but not really fully participating in a discussion. That's what they're doing on this last day. So your last day should absolutely be like the culminating event. And that's what I'd like to conference with all of you about. And some of you, I feel like you're getting stuck. Like I just met with Patrick yesterday, recording class for him. And he was like, I've had them do the details and do the retell every day. What the heck do I do on this last day? Make it something fun. So what we landed on for him is all week they've been reading The Giving Tree. And they're retelling the parts of the story. And there are parts, like he's a boy and he visits the tree. He's a young man, he visits the tree. He's an old man, he visits the tree. There's stages in that book. And so I said to him, what do you think would be a fun culminating activity? They've already journaled, they've already retold, they've already done lots of oral things. What else could your first graders do? And he said, what if they acted it out? Yes, brilliant. So he's got them all creating scenes in that book to act out a whole class retelling in action. So they're going to retell the story as a class. And each group of 3 will get graded on a performance rubric for that. So he's going to create this performance rubric that scores them on their ability to retell, because that's his standard, but also, are they making eye contact? Are they presenting out loud? And did they have a solid written response? So I'm sorry that I'm using Patrick and he's not even here for his brilliant example, but that's just one idea. So you'll see what I did for mine. Mine is pre-K, so not quite to that level. They can't perform and write a scene in a story. So they're going to do that participating in a discussion. So during post-reading, they'll be able to discuss Brown Bear by correctly using the prompt, "My favorite part of the book is," to earn 2 check marks on an aligned checklist. So you can see all the little pieces of what I'm doing in this. My assessment box says a checklist of their names will be used to monitor their ability to answer the post-reading question, "What's your favorite part?" So you can see I'm going to ask them that question, and then I expect them to respond using the starter, "My favorite part of the story is," and they'll get 1 check for being able to use the starter and 1 check for accurately telling their favorite part of the story. And then I said, "See the attached assessment." So your assessment box needs to be super clear and aligned to the assessment that you're using in your objective. You're going to see in my lesson that I have other chances where I check in and I informally assess them. But my big ending one is going to be aligned to my objective and is going to align to the standard that I'm asking them to do. Okay, so let's take a look. This is the real update and the real change to this lesson plan from all others. And it's the instructional flow. And this is structured around an intro, a lesson chunk, it's a lot, and then a closing. So you do not have to write to this level. This is the sample, and I wrote it this way for 2 reasons. One, because I really want you to see all that goes into a lesson plan. It's not just teacher will read the book. What's that going to sound like? What's that going to look like? And 2, I wanted to really model for you the level of detail that you need on your Ed TPA. So when you are a teacher in the real world, you're not going to write paragraphs on your lesson plan. That's just not a thing you're going to do. You're going to write open to page 50 and start reading, right, as a real teacher. But you all have to start thinking about the Ed TPA assessment, which is that big portfolio, $300, big deal. This kind of lesson plan would do really well. You do not, for this class, have to write paragraphs like I did. I did that so you could kind of hear what my lesson would be like. But I do need the next level of detail so that I know that you know. So when you're writing your lesson plan, you need to think, what does Dr. Sturm need to hear me say so that I can prove to her that I know how to write a good lesson plan? And if you're just jotting down, teacher will ask questions during reading. I don't know that you know what kind of questions. What will you ask them? What will their responses sound like? How will you call on students? All of those little details need to be in this lesson plan. So when you're writing it, think about sitting in my office or sitting with me in a conference and me saying, "Can you provide more detail on that? What would that sound like? What kinds of questions could you ask them?" So think about how you can add so much detail that I'm not left wondering anything in your lesson. Another good way to think as you're writing this is pretend, have any of you seen a substitute teacher in your classrooms? Raise your hand if you've seen a sub. Okay, good, solid substitute lesson plans make the lessons run smoothly. If your teacher has just jotted notes or had an emergency and couldn't leave anything for the sub, what happens? Mass chaos, right? Pets' heads are falling off. Do you understand that reference? Anybody? Yes! That's your point. So think about, Dumb and Dumber, guys. Think about having a substitute teacher in your class. If you were your classroom teacher, your host teacher, and you were leaving substitute plans, you want to make sure they know exactly what to do when you're not there. Okay. So let's take a look at mine. Introduction is 5 minutes. You can change the minutes and you can decide how long your literacy period is. Is it a half-hour lesson? Great. Is it 60? I think I plan mine to be an hour. Great. Is it the full 90-minute ELA block? Great. You decide, and you have total freedom to do that. You can also decide, like Patrick is trying to get his students into groups of 3, and there's 6 parts of the story, so it would be really great if his class had 18 students. You can decide how many students there are. If you want to group them, and it works out nicely if there's 18, great. You get to call all of these shots in this lesson plan. This is fictitious, so go with it. So you'll see, 5 minutes before reading the book, ask the students if anyone remembers the book we've been reading and what happens in it. Ask if they can remember any colors or animals from that book. So a very brief check-in review. I didn't do anything cute or fun like a video. You can absolutely do a video. You could do a video, you can have them listen to a poem, you could have them turn and talk to each other or do some sort of more exciting thing, again, lazy/busy, so I just had them retell what they remember about the book. I thought that would be a nice warm-up also to the discussion. So the teacher's gonna do that, the students are gonna respond to the teacher's questions recalling information about brown bear. Where is the information about brown bear in my lesson plan? I didn't put that in here. Where does that appear? In my lesson plan someplace is all the information about the brown bear text that I want them to recall. Where? The no box. The no box has all of the details about that book. Some of you are having a hard time with the no box. That's the literal information that your students need to know. So when I see this recall information, I know I'm going to go to that no box. That's the recall information. Okay. So my check for understanding, I'm not assessing here, but I'm checking for understanding. You are welcome to modify, because I think it says like assessment here. Modify it if you don't want to fully assess, but I'm going to listen to their responses, give them immediate corrective feedback if they make mistakes, and give reminders for anybody who has difficulty recalling information. In pre-K, they raise their hand automatically when you ask a question, and then you call on them, and they're like, and they start like talking about their weekends. So I would help them, and I would say, do you remember a color from the book or something like that? So that would be my provide reminders. So that's my intro. That would take 5 minutes. The bulk of my lesson, and you'll see it spans 2 whole pages, is the lesson. This is the most important part of your lesson plan. This is where the action happens. This is what you all have been dying to write. This is the what you're teaching section. And people who lose points on this section, it happens because you don't actually teach them anything. Maybe you skip right to like, I'm going to hand out the activity and they're going to start coloring. You have to have one solid moment of real instruction in this section. Even if you're planning, like Patrick's going to do that scene activity where they're going to make their own scenes and act out the story, he should still have a moment in this lesson where he's going to teach them how to probably do the writing for their scene. So you need to make sure you've got teaching happening in this. So let's see how mine plays out. So I'm going to start with reading aloud the book again. Everybody should be reading aloud that book again on day 5. And that could be your intro too. That could be your nice 5-minute introduction. Just quickly read through the story once more. As you read, allow one student to use the pointer for each page. We've been practicing that in pre-K. Make sure that the student uses the pointer accurately pointing to individual words. Provide hand-over-hand support. That literally means I would put my hand over the students and help them point if they need it. There's a place that I'm providing modifications or support for my students with needs. So you can see how I'm integrating my differentiation right into the lesson plan. So I provide hand-over-hand support for anyone who's unable to track words independently, which is totally fine and appropriate for pre-K. I would encourage the students to join in with a choral reading. If they know any of the words, they can join. At the end, I would return to the start, and I would tell my students that I'm going to use the word treasure hunt strategy. This is a new thing for this lesson plan. You have to have at least one good research-based strategy. You all bought that other textbook, the Saravallo textbook. I hope you brought it today, or you have a neighbor who remembered to bring it. I can run up and get mine if you want. Find a strategy that is appropriate for your lesson plan and for your students and their needs at that grade level. So I just opened the book to the emergent reader section, and I found a strategy that would be appropriate for kiddos who are just learning about words. And it's the word treasure hunt strategy, and it's literally having the kids look at a text that they're familiar with and hunt for words that they know and keeping a collection of them on an anchor chart. So that's what I decided I would do. So we would go back through the book and hunt for words that we know, opening each page one at a time, asking the students, should we hunt for some treasures? And do you see any letters you know? And do you see any words you know? Where do you think I got those 3 guiding questions? That's right, from the book. I didn't make those up. Lazy, busy. I found them in the book, and that's what I put in my lesson plan. So that is actually how that strategy plays out. You ask them those 3 questions, and then you keep a list of all the words that they hunt for. So I'm using my read aloud as a re-engagement with the text and also as a way to work in a research-based strategy. It's not the main focus of my lesson. In fact, it has nothing really to do with the objective or the assessment, but I worked in that strategy in a way that's meaningful for them and works with what I had already planned to do. So something like that would be fantastic. This paragraph here is the key part of this lesson section. I know it seems short, but this is where I'm actually going to teach the students a thing that they're going to do. So in the post-reading, I'm going to teach them the word favorite. They probably know this word, but I'm going to explicitly teach it to them because they're in pre-K, and maybe they don't remember that word. So I tell them that they're going to get a chance to participate in a discussion about the book. What am I doing right there? Opening my teaching section by telling them they're going to get to participate in a discussion. What is that? I'm clearly stating the objective to them. Here, today, you're going to participate in a discussion that maps out to my standard and to my learning objective. That's a nice thing to do at the start of your teaching block, is to tell them, today you're going to learn how to blah, blah, blah. Tell them that their discussion is going to be about favorite parts of the book, a little preview. Tell them that the word favorite might be new to them and that it means the part in the book that you like the very best. That is very pre-K appropriate language. The thing you like the very best, that is your favorite. Ask them to all say the word favorite out loud with you. So this is a new word to them. I'm going to make them say it back to me. Then I'm going to ask if anybody wants to try to say that word favorite by themselves. Let everybody who wants to try at that get to say it. You've probably seen something like this in the pre-K pre-K classroom that you've been observing. They are new to language, so any chance that they get to try it out loud, do it. I would accept all volunteers who want to do that. Remind them then that the word favorite means something that you like the very best. I'm repeating that information. Ask them to turn and talk. There's a really good strategy that gets them engaged, to tell somebody what the word favorite means. This is not their favorite. This is, what does the word favorite mean? Ask for somebody to tell you out loud. Monitor for understanding and provide immediate corrective feedback. So if I say, what does the word favorite mean? And I call on a student and he says, my favorite color is red. I will say, no, not your favorite color. What does the word favorite mean? Tell me what that word means. And hoping that they're going to come to, it means something you like the very best, because I just taught them that. Okay, so that's a key part of my lesson plan, is teaching them favorite. That's setting them up for the discussion they're going to participate in. So then I taught them that word. The next good step in solid teaching practice is to let them practice with the word. So I taught it, I explicitly explained what it is. Now, before we talk about our favorite part of the book, I'm going to let them practice discussing their favorite foods. So every kid who's 4 has a favorite food, like mac and cheese or pizza or chicken nuggets or hot dogs or whatever 4-year-olds eat. I'm going to tell them that the food that I think is the very best is pasta. And I'm going to model for them how I would discuss my favorite food using this statement. My favorite food is pasta. And then I'm going to ask them to turn and talk to tell somebody else what their favorite food is, reminding them that favorite means the food that you like the very best. I'm going to ask if anybody would like to discuss what their favorite food is, accept every volunteer that wants to, provide immediate corrective feedback. And then I put a little note here. I'm going to make sure that everyone uses the prompt, my favorite food is, correctly. because that's going to set them up for the discussion on brown bear that's coming next. Okay, so that's the practicing. So I teach it explicitly up here, they practice it here, and then they're going to get a chance to try it with the book. At this point, students have been sitting for a very long time. They're 4 years old, they're busybodies, so I'm going to have them stand up, dance to a song that I found that is actually applicable to this. It's called Do You Like Broccoli Ice Cream? It's a quick little YouTube video. I just Googled kids songs about favorite foods or silly food songs, and I found one that works for the end of this, and that would provide a little bit of closure to this section. So I built in a brain break. Then this section is very long because this is where they're doing the thing. So I read aloud to prep them. I taught it. We practiced it together. Now they're actually going to do the thing. So the do the thing section should be the longest part of your lesson plan because this is where the students are applying and you need to explain that in detail. What's that going to look like? So finally, I will explain to them that now they're going to get to participate in the discussion about their favorite part of the book that we've been reading all week, Brown Bear, Brown Bear. Remind them that favorite means the thing that they like the very best, and tell them that you would like them to discuss their favorite part, the part that they like the very best of Brown Bear. To help them, I would like them to say the words, my favorite part of the story is, have them practice saying this out loud. Have them ask volunteers to say it out loud alone. So that same process of say it with me, now say it to yourself, now say it to somebody else to get them to practice. Next, I'm going to tell them to close their eyes and think really hard about the different parts of the story. Because again, if you just ask pre-K students or kindergarten or first grade, tell me what your favorite part is, every hand goes up, and then all of a sudden they're like, my weekend I went to the circus with my mom. You need to give them a chance to think about it first. So think really hard, especially the words that we found in our treasure hunt. As you have your eyes closed, walk back through the book, reminding them of all the characters. Remember that there was a brown bear, a red bird, a yellow duck. Go through the whole book. Tell them to think of the one part that they like the very best and hold it in their brains. Then they're going to open their eyes and turn and talk to their elbow buddy, saying, my favorite part of the story is, and let them fill in the blank. Then let them take turns asking each student one at a time, what was your favorite part of the story? And remind them, use the words that I taught you to discuss your favorite part of the story. And you can provide extra support for students who forgot, my favorite part of the story is. So when they say, you get to every student and it's Samantha's turn and she says, red bear, you're going to say, can you use the words I taught you? And then my favorite part of the story. And for extra supports for the students who have speech issues or for students who are English language learners, that might need extra scaffolding. So in pre-K, you might say, repeat after me and literally word by word, my, and then they say my favorite, and they say favorite, part, and you keep going until it gets to the end where they get to say their favorite part. So that's a way that you can scaffold, and you'll see that in my differentiation. Okay, so that's the main part where I'm also assessing them. So they're going to be listening, they're going to participate. I'm assessing. So during this application, I will assess using the checklist that I made attached in their oral response to the question, what's your favorite part? Each student will be able to earn one check for correctly saying my favorite part of the story is, and one check for saying an actual part of the story. At the end, the students will show that they can use a prompt provided in order to discuss. Mastery of the skill has to be 2 check marks. It's the 5th day, so I expect them to be able to do all of these things. If they don't, it will be retaught at the end when the rest of the class is coloring a booklet that I have for them. Students who are still emerging in their oral language or English language will have the option to point instead, so there's another way that I'm differentiating. Instead of saying it out loud. So we'll talk about those strategies in a minute. So a little snippet on how I'm assessing at the very end. The closing to this lesson is about 15 minutes. I'm going to provide them all with mini brown bear booklets. It is my instructional material, and you can see it's way down here. The reason my lesson plan project is 21 pages long is because this is like 9 of them. So I have an instructional material, of the entire book in like this cute little format. I found it online. It's not a crazy research-based resource, but I found it online and it was cute, so I used it. Resources like this that are like fun coloring pages don't have to be reputable and reliable. I found this, it was fun, I used it. Somebody in here is doing The Day the Crayons Quit. No, that's Kaylee in my other class. She found a crayon coloring sheet. It's not reputable or reliable. I think she got it at Teachers Pay Teachers. That's okay, because this is not part of my like teaching strategy. This is like the after activity that I'm having them use. Okay, so I'm going to give them the booklets. They're going to, page by page, I'm going to help them read the colors and the animals and remember the words ICA, because that's on every page. And I thought the other day, a way that I could also help know that they're going to color correctly is have them say, okay, we're on red bird. Everybody find your red crayon and hold it up in the air for me, and then color just the beak on the bird. So then I know that every page they've got the right color crayon so that they can finish coloring it all correctly. That was just a little extra idea I had. I didn't put that on here. As they're coloring, I'm going to pull the small group of students who didn't get 2 check marks on my assessment. I'm going to reteach, give them additional support. I'm going to have a teacher aide who can help me if I need it. For my English language learners, I would translate the colors and the animals to their home language. They would get a different booklet. I didn't include it, busy, lazy. For my English language learners, I would translate that booklet into their first language so that they can take it home and read it with mom and dad. Okay, students are coloring. The assessment is just to make sure that they have the animal colored correctly, give immediate feedback. So I would have an adult going around the room, and if they're coloring their yellow duck purple, make sure that they have the right crayon. Okay, the next new thing for this assignment is a follow-up activity. So this is not groundbreaking. We're not giving kindergarten and first graders homework, but it is an extension into home. So I would let them take their Brown Bear booklets home, maybe finish coloring it at home, but tell them to read it with their families. And I would create a note. I didn't include it here, but I would have a note for the caregivers that would include instructions on what we did. So in class, we've been participating in discussions. Ask your child to tell you the favorite part of the story that they had, and use the words, my favorite part is, because we did that in school today. So that would be like a little note that I would send home with that booklet, just to re-engage them outside of school in the activity. You don't have to create your home activity, your extension activity. You don't need the handouts. You don't need to do that. A description of that is fine. Okay, so questions on the flow of the lesson. It's intense. A full School of Ed lesson plan has a lot of details. We're looking, in this class, I'm not looking for mastery of it, but it would be really good if you took an attempt at teaching something explicitly, giving them some guided practice, letting them try it in application. That's the School of Ed lesson plan format that we will be focusing on next semester. That's the whole purpose of next semester. Take a stab at it here. Also though, like Patrick is doing this creative activity, he might not have that whole cycle in his. That's fine. If you're thinking of a creative activity like, how am I going to do this full cycle? That's okay. But that is where we're heading next semester, and this would be a good place to practice, and that's the sample that I provided.
I have a question about the closing section.
Sure.
So, like, since your extension activity connects to the closing, because they're coloring the book that they're taking home, right?
Yep.
So what if it's like our extension activity is something that isn't like an immediate thing?
Yep.
What are we supposed to do for the closing? Like, does it have to be connected to the extension?
No, absolutely not. Mine just happened to work that way.
Okay.
Maybe you've got them going home and like interviewing someone at home for their extension. Then your closing might be show a video. Another thing I thought of was finding a Brown Bear video online and having them listen to that or play a fun song or a video. That would be fine too. But somehow you've got to wrap up your lesson.
Okay.
Good question. It does not have to directly apply to your extension to home. Okay, so this box is not probably ever going to be this long and detailed, and you will not have to write everything that I did. I went overkill. I want you to differentiate in 2 of the 4 ways. What are the 4 ways that we can differentiate our instruction? I know we all know this because you learned it last week, and now I know that. We talked about it in this class. It's the Tomlinson model. Lots of confused looks. There are 4 ways to differentiate. I'll give you the first one, content. You can differentiate the content of your lesson. And that is like, if you've got a book that you're reading, you provide different levels of text for your students at the different reading levels. That's one quick way. What's another way, Erin?
Process.
Process. What is process?
So it's like the way that the activity is done.
Literally the teaching that you do and the activity that they're doing. You change the process of that somehow. So for content, I bolded these. I would modify the content for anyone who's an English language learner by translating the colors and the animal names to their home language, including in the booklet going home. I didn't actually do that in my lesson plan, and you don't have to do any of the translating, but I said that I would. The process, where's my process? I'm using universal supports for the process used to take in the information provided. So I'm going to model the word favorite. You saw me doing that in the lesson. I explicitly teach it and I say, my favorite food is pasta. I'm modeling the use of the phrase, my favorite food, and my favorite part of the story. I'm going to give them multiple opportunities to engage in low stakes practice with the word favorite, where they get to turn and talk. So that's the process that I am providing scaffolds. That's a universally designed support for them. And then they're going to get a chance to have immediate corrective feedback, that hand-over-hand support. When they're saying the prompts for favorite, I'm going to immediately correct them if they start talking about their weekend or something. So those are ways that I universally design my lesson to be differentiated and modified for every kind of learner. Okay, what's another one? We got process, we got content. Sam?
Product.
Product, what's product?
Have students show what they know, understand, and can do.
Yeah, it's the thing that they submit. It's the thing that you're gonna grade. So for me, the product of my lesson is an oral response. So for students who are still emerging in their expressive language skills, which is super appropriate in pre-K, like some of them have strong skills in language, some of them don't. So for those kiddos who don't, they're gonna be allowed to point to their favorite part of the book. So my assessment at the end of the color word, the animal name, when I say, what's your favorite part of the story, I'll say, my favorite part of the story is, and then I'll present the book to them and they can point. Because they are not ready yet to speak English in full sentences, or they're still emerging in their speech practices. Okay, so that's my product. Think of the thing that they're handing in. So I was thinking with Patrick yesterday about his product is gonna be acting out this scene. And I asked him, how are you differentiating or modifying for the kids who maybe are emerging in English? You're asking them to present a little play in your class. What if they're afraid to speak because they don't speak English as a first language? And so we talked about how he could modify, and maybe they would be the tree in the story who doesn't have a thing to say and can still participate but not have to speak out loud. Or helping them to pre-teach that what they're gonna say so that they get to practice it before they have to say it out loud in the class. So think of how you might modify process. Okay, so we've got product. We've got process, content, product. What's the last one?
Environment.
Yeah, the learning environment. So the environment of the lesson will be modified throughout the lesson because they're gonna start with a read aloud, then they're gonna get to turn and talk. So I start whole class, then they turn and talk to a buddy, and then they're gonna have a break to dance and be silly, which gets them up and moving, another change in the way that the environment is being addressed. Then they're gonna color and get to practice the words more. Small groups are also going to be created to reteach or reinforce anything that was not mastered, so that's another modification of the grouping. So I've got, they're listening to something, they're going to color, they're going to engage in a discussion, they're going to turn and talk, lots of different ways that I'm using the space of the classroom. Okay, so this is super overkill. You would not do all 4 of these. I would like you to pick 2. So either process and content, product and environment. Environment's probably the easiest one. Get them moving to like 3 or 4 different places in the classroom, and then pick one other one that you want to use. So this should only be a couple of sentences for you. You're not going to have 250 words like I do. That's meant to model for you so you can see the different ways that you could differentiate. Questions? Okay, that is the whole lesson plan, because the only thing left are the resources and the materials that you're going to use, and you've already done that. Notice I'm just linking out to that YouTube video, and I got crayons and pencils. This is not a groundbreaking assignment or activity here. There's my assessment. There's my handouts. So many handouts. And then I'm down to my commentary. What are your questions on the lesson plan before we dig into the commentary? Does it help to see a full lesson plan like that written all out? You don't have to go to, that was like next level, because I was trying to illustrate all of the ways that you could do all of the things. You don't have to be that level of detail, but I am looking to see that you can fully explain what the teacher's doing and what the students are doing to some level of detail. You also don't need to have full, complete sentences. If you're really, I'm a paragraph writer, that's just how my mind thinks. If you're a good bulleter, like you can bullet, some of you did bullet points on your the running record assignment, and I was like, these are so easy to read and so lovely. Thank you for the bullet points. If that's you, bullet points, as long as you've got all the details that you need. Okay, commentary, ready? Brace yourselves. You ready? Okay. This is your first attempt at EdTPA style writing. Brace yourself. It is different kind of writing. You're going to feel repetitive. You're going to feel like it's annoying and hard, and it is. All of those things. So the first question is easy. What's your central focus? The central focus is reading comprehension. All of you should write the central focus is reading comprehension. On the EdTPA, you get two choices. It is either a writing composition or a reading comprehension. I forced all of you to choose just from the first page of the at-a-glance standards, which are the reading comprehension. So you should all have that first sentence, changing out this for the grade level. The lessons are focused on the text, and the students will explore colors and animals. So that's just a little bit more explanation, but that one's pretty straightforward. You're all doing reading comprehension. Okay. The entire EdTPA is planned around something called an essential literacy strategy. Get used to that term. You're going to hear me say it 80,000 times in the spring. Basically what it means is you're going to choose one strategy that good readers or writers use as they're reading and writing, and you're going to teach it to your kiddos. Mine is sort of not a great one because we're not writing EdTPA lesson plans in this class yet. I first need to see that you can write a lesson plan. Next semester we'll do the EdTPA style ones. So I'm going to talk here about that word treasure hunt strategy. So whatever Saravallo strategy you land on, that's what you're going to write about here. This strategy, I'm going to explain, involves walking students who are emerging in their literacy abilities through a text and hunting for any letters or words that they know. At the end, they've heard the text Brown Bear 5 times, and many of them will have some of those words committed to their memory. This strategy is going to help them pay attention to the words on the page while also connecting to the main goal for the unit, which is participating in a discussion. A strategy like the treasure hunt helps them to begin to make automatic connections between what's on the page and what they're learning to speak and read more fluently. After the word hunt, students can think of words as they consider their favorite part of the book. Some of them are probably going to choose the favorite part based on the word that they hunted for. So just an explanation of the strategy I picked and why I picked it. Yours can stay at that surface level this semester. Next semester, you're going to expand on this greatly to talk about all five of your lesson plans and how that strategy was taught and featured across all of them. So for here, just take a stab at explaining the strategy you chose and why you chose it. Okay, this question, number 3, which maps out to 1B on the EdTPA, is the hardest, most complicated part of the entire EdTPA Task 1. It's the one where people constantly don't put enough information. So the question, and I modified it slightly here for you all, the question is, how do your plans build on each other? Use the standards and the objectives to explain. So they're asking for a couple of things here. They want to know, what are your standards and what are your objectives? So I think I'm going to start there. And then they want to know how your plans build on one another. So my 5 lessons are logically sequenced to build upon one another. The standard for each lesson is exactly the same, right? You're using the same standard. So put that standard in. The standard is cut and pasted here. The objectives are cut and pasted here. So you've got to, people forget that they need to list out all the standards and the objectives. That's step 1. And that's all just a cut and paste. I'm not going to read those because that's boring. Then, beyond that, they want you, it's not enough to just post your standards and objectives. You have to explain explicitly for your scorer how your plans build on one another. So they're going to start by engaging in very basic discussions in the text using the prompts, one animal I saw was, one color I saw was. These prompts are not very sophisticated and they require nothing more than the students to hunt back through the text to see what they see, to say what they see. This lesson reinforces color names and gives them practice in the animal names. And then in lesson 2, I'm going to build on what they did in lesson 1 by them being able to correctly identify one color from the same books by themselves. And then they're going to say, I see a blah, blah, blah. In lesson 3, I'm going to check for them to be able to use another prompt, I see a, I think I mixed those up. They'll need to use what they learned from the first 2 lessons about colors and animals to talk about what they see. Then they're going to get a chance to write in whatever form they want to in lesson 4. This blank is what is the writing prompt after our scavenger hunt. They're going to find an animal or a thing and talk about its color. They're getting more and more practice. Finally, in lesson 5, they're going to engage in a discussion. So I'm not going to read all the details of that response, but it's literally walking one by one through the lessons, talking about what you planned and how it builds on what they did before. Okay. Describe and justify why your strategies and plan supports are appropriate for whole class, individuals, and groups with specific needs. So this response is looking for lots of things. First of all, we talked about describe and justify. Those are 2 different things. So one is say what it is, the other is give a rationale for why you did it. And then they're looking at strategies and plan supports, and then they want 3 different groups of students, whole class, individuals, and then your groups with specific learning needs. There's a lot going on in this response, which is why it's a bajillion words long. The best way to structure this is around the strategies and plan supports that I will be using are the following. I'm going to model for them. I'm going to allow them to practice. And then I'm going to give them immediate corrective feedback. You can borrow heavily from this. Just make sure you're revising to not plagiarize and use your own writing. But then after I do that, so I lead with my instructional strategies and plan supports. That's here. That's what I'm doing. And then these are appropriate for the whole class. Talk about why those strategies are good for the whole class. Modeling is good because everybody gets to hear it. Corrective feedback is good because the whole class is involved in hearing how I fix the students' mistakes. Then scrolling down, after the whole group, I start talking about small groups or pairs of students. So what's appropriate in my lesson supports for small groups of students. And then individual students are the last one. Finally, the use of immediate corrective feedback is appropriate for individuals. So you lead with your strategies and your supports, and then you break it down, whole class, small group, individuals. I will let you read that on your own time. What are some developmental approximations or misconceptions that they might have, and how will you address them? This is, what could your students possibly get wrong, and how are you going to fix it when they do? So I said they might mix up color words and animal names. That's a central focus to my unit. I'm going to begin by reviewing every single day. We're going to go over that book again. And I'm going to practice throughout the day, for example, saying things like, everybody who's wearing a red shirt, come to the rug with me, reinforcing the colors that they learned. Another developmental approximation is the ability to use all of those prompts that I've planned. Some children are not going to be able to fully form all of the sounds. They won't be able to remember the words yet. They don't have that good short-term memory yet, or they've got speech and language development issues. There's two things I can do for them. First, I'm going to modify my expectations, and instead of the whole phrase, I see a red bird, I'm going to have them point and they'll say just the word yellow horse, for example. This way I can make sure that they understand the colors and the animals without yet fully expecting them to say everything. Then I could pronounce each word. This was that word by word support for students who need it, like my English language learners. So this is what could they possibly get wrong and how are you gonna help them, support them? We're almost done. I fully recognize how intense this is. We're almost there. Describe how your planned formal and informal assessments will provide direct evidence that the students have learned what you taught. So this question is describe your assessments. Throughout my 5 lessons, I'm checking in with them consistently and repeatedly. This is across all of your lessons. So I'm gonna have checklists that I'm gonna monitor. They're gonna have smiley faces. All of my assessments get described here, as well as how I'm using the scores to track their learning. That's 1 through 5. Explain how you will assess. And then the last one is the modifications or the adaptations. How will you adapt your planned lessons for students with specific needs? This is where I'm talking about the supports I have in place for people emerging in their speech and language, for those who are English language learners, and then finally I put in children who have behavioral needs will get the opportunity to sit or to stand, to take a brain break, maybe play with putty or another tactile comfort object. These I'm just making up, so make up some supports that you can provide for all of your students. Okay, that's it. It's a lot. I know it's a lot. And I am not expecting, this is like above and beyond an exemplar. If you submitted what I wrote to the EdTPA, you would probably get a perfect score. So you don't have to be to that level. It is just meant as a model for you to start to think about working toward. I want you to do your best effort on this. And I am not grading this as though I'm grading an EdTPA. I score for the EdTPA. I am not wearing that hat when I grade these. I'm thinking about you as this is your first attempt at it. You don't need 5 pages of writing. I put like everything in there. You can just put the things that you're thinking at this time that's applicable to you. I will leave you lots of comments like, on your EdTPA, you're gonna wanna expand on this a lot more. But I'm probably not gonna take off points for you not being, I am not going to take off points for you not being to the level of EdTPA. So I provided a sample that's insane, knowing that you're not going to be to this level, so don't let this scare you. If you have 2 solid pages written in your commentary, you're going to be okay. Do the best that you can describing all of these things, take your best stab at your differentiation and your modifications, but know that I am not going to come down heavy-handed on this last assignment. If you take a good stab at it, and the things that you planned, you're able to describe them well for me, you'll be okay. Questions? Who's freaked out? A little bit. Okay. All right. What questions do you have that I can address now? A lot of you probably have individual questions that we'll talk about.
When is this due again?
So this is due by the time I see you in our next class. So you've got a week to work on it. If you're working on it and that does not feel feasible to you, send me an email, and if enough of those emails come in, I'll think about giving you an extension. But I want you to work on it. I want you to do your best to try to get it done. But if it's like, you know, you've got a gajillion other things to do, email me, and then I'll play my extension by ear based on what I hear from all of you. Because this is going to take you a lot of time. It took me 2 hours to write this, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had everything sketched out, and I extensively understand the EdTPA. 2 hours. So give yourself several hours of time to work on this. This is a big one. All right, what else? Is it helpful for you to see a sample like this? I'm hoping that my sample doesn't freak you out, because it is like next level. You don't need to be to this level. I would never expect any of you to be able to write like this, but it's something that you can use as a framework. Look more closely at how I've structured the paragraphs. You can totally borrow the prompts. Like this part, students will be given multiple opportunities to show their ability to cut and paste into your assignment. Like those sentence fragments, those frames, for sure. You can't take all of my ideas and cut and paste my entire response in yours. That's not gonna work. And I've designed it at a pre-K level around a text that is for them. But you can borrow some of the sentence starters and the framework for my paragraphs. That's totally acceptable. Any other questions for the good of the order? Sam?
How many questions are on the SEPA?
I don't even want to tell you.
Oh no, let's hear it.
There's a lot. There's a lot. This is probably half of the questions from the first task, and there are 4 tasks. So you'll write an entire, I saw that, Matt. I saw that moment of holy. There are 4 tasks on the EdTPA. One is for planning instruction. You will write an entire task 1 next semester in Inch 390 with lots of scaffolding and support, tons of examples, an entire EdTPA workshop that goes 3 weeks. So you will be ready. Don't worry. That's next semester. Task 2 is you're going to teach in the classroom where you're student teaching, videotaping yourself, video recording yourself, and you'll write a commentary paper about all of the great things that you did in that video. That one's short. That's usually about 6 pages. This one's 9 or 10, with lesson plans extra. Task 3 is you will assess your students in some way. So you'll actually collect the data, the assessment data from your students for the assessment that you plan in your lesson plan. You'll analyze that data kind of like you did for the running record assignment. You'll come up with your findings, and you'll talk about the next steps that you do. And then there's a math test that I don't know anything about and I don't even touch. But it's basically a mini version of the literacy one, all in one task. So you'll plan something, you'll teach something, you'll assess something, you'll re-engage them. So those are the 4 EdTPA tasks that are coming. This is just a snippet of, I think, 3 or 4 of the questions from task 1 that I broke up into easier, manageable chunks. It's getting real, friends. The ed program's getting real. And this is just not to scare you, but to prepare you. Because what happened at my previous place of employment, our students got to the EdTPA and never once saw it, never once got a chance to talk about it, never had an assignment to help them, and they got to it and it was like a slap in the face. And so, because I teach the literacy courses, I've made it my mission to slowly, incrementally expose you to the EdTPA so that when you get to student teaching, you're not like, what in the H is this? You're ready for it, you know it's coming. So this is just step 1. I promise one day you will thank me. Right now you hate me, you will thank me. Okay,